Welcome to Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, the founder and CEO of Enter the Arena. I'm a serial entrepreneur and an expert in raising investment and business growth. Our mission at Enter the Arena is to empower female founders to fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business with investment expertise and business coaching. Here we share the stories of inspirational female founders who've raised investment to inspire you to do the same. You'll hear their honest accounts of what it was really like to secure funding, the highs, the lows, and the challenges they experienced on the journey. And along the way, we'll discuss top tips for how you can be successful too. So today I'm speaking with Patricia Salume, the co-founder and COO of VeeLoop. Now, VeeLoop is an online approval and payment service to help young people shop online. It's all about helping kids and teens shop online safely and independently whilst keeping their parents in the loop. And also protecting their data along the way, which is fantastic. So for kids, it's a bit like going shopping with your mum and dad. You're putting everything in your basket online. You send it to mum or dad, and then they check what they're buying and pay in their own time. So it sounds like a fabulous service. Patricia originally comes from Brazil, where she spent about 10 years working in the charity and public sectors before moving to the UK, where she's been for 20 years now. After gaining an MBA at Henley Business School, Patricia worked as a management consultant, working with large corporates as well as SMEs and startups, before founding VeeLoop in 2017 with her co-founder Randa Bennett. And Patricia has so far raised around £300,000 in equity finance for VeeLoop, which is amazing. So let's find out more about the business, how Patricia raised that money, and all the things that she learned along the way. So hi, Patricia, welcome.
Hello. Thanks, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming.
Our
So I say coming, obviously we're doing this remotely. We're recording this in the time of pandemic, all over Zoom as usual. And I'm sure we'll come on to talk a little bit more about what's been going on for you over the last few months in a minute. But before we do that, let's go back to the beginning of VeeLoop. And I'm really intrigued to know how you and Randa came up with the idea for VeeLoop back in, was it 2017?
Yes, about that. Actually, Randa came up with the idea because she's got a now 16-year-old, but at the time she was about 12, 13. And she started wanting to shop online and always coming up and saying, Mom, I want this, can you pay? Bring in a laptop, can you pay? And then, you're always doing dinner or you're putting the other kid in bed and she's sort of pestering you, follow you around the house. And Randa's worked in technology for many, many years, delivering projects. And so she thought, well, why can't I solve this issue? Because it was becoming an issue, because then the child gets annoyed, she closes the laptop and there you go, you haven't bought shoes or you haven't bought stationery for school. So she thought, okay, let me talk to people and see if this is a problem. So she went out and talked to her daughter's friends and her friends who had kids in the same age group, and found out that was an emerging problem because the internet was becoming sort of present in everyone's lives more and more, and people were struggling with that sort of issue because kids have the access but they couldn't finish their purchase in a way that the parents were happy with. So she started looking at how to build the product herself, and at a point she needed help. She couldn't do it herself. She was working full time. So she wrote on a Facebook group, our local Facebook group, if anyone wanted to help. At that time, I had left my full-time job at Hackney Council and I was doing consultancy. So I had 2 or 3 projects on the go, and I said, yes, I can help you. We met, we discussed it, and she said, okay, let's try. So I started contracting for her and we got on really well. We kind of complement each other's skills, and that was a really important thing as well. And at some point I really liked the idea. I could see there was something there, and I thought, okay, we started working more and more. And at one point we had to come up to the discussion of what's the future like. And we said, okay, if we want to become partners, we had that discussion on how, equity and all that, and did an agreement, a co-founders agreement. And then I became a co-founder of the business. That's how the story
I love
started.
that. I meet so many founders, particularly female founders, who would desperately love to have a business partner and don't know how on earth to get one.
Yeah.
And I have never ever heard of somebody finding their co-founder on a local Facebook group. But how brilliant is that? And actually that's often where you can find fabulous women who have had incredible corporate careers, who perhaps don't want that anymore, but have so much to bring. So that is a real golden nugget that you've just given our listeners there. Fantastic.
For me as well, because I was trying to find work, in these consultancies and LinkedIn and all that, and then I found work in a local Facebook group, and I was like,
I love it.
Okay.
Fabulous. And so did you have kids yourself at the time then when you...
Yeah, my son was 2 at the time, so he actually came to our first meeting.
Oh, brilliant. I love it. Of course, you hadn't experienced the problem yourself at that point. I presume your son wasn't shopping online age 2.
He was too young at the time, but once I started working with her, I started then doing research as well, primary and secondary, looking at Mintel reports. Once you start looking at Mintel reports, even a few years ago, Mintel already was picking that up in very small nuggets. So when you start reading the reports, and I started doing that to get some stats for our pitch deck and, to build up our knowledge base, you see that Mintel was starting to pick that up in small bits. And then as the years came, that they start to bring it up more and more. So that sort of validated what we were hearing from parents, which I thought was really, interesting. And also it gives you that more confidence that it's not just you, that is being picked up in different places. So that was very good.
So that rigor of researching the idea and getting feedback from the market really early on sounds like it was very helpful. Do you think that your sort of extensive background working in corporates was very helpful at that start point?
I think to that extent, yes, because during the consultancy work that I did, one of them was for one of the big 4 supermarkets, and the amount of data and evidence we have to give them to then validate what you're advising them to do, it just puts you in that mindset of, actually, I can't just say this is what I think is the best, but I have to give evidence of why. And that needs to make sense so that people will then have confidence on what you're telling them. So I think that's the main one, actually, the rigor of the evidence that you provide.
Yes. I mean, and we'll come on to investment later, but that's certainly something that investors love to see. So let's talk about funding. So at the beginning then, I mean, did you guys need a lot of funding to get things started, or and how did you fund it in the early days?
Okay, well, it was bootstrapped the early days. We tried, once we started working together very early on, we tried to get some funding before the product was ready, and very quickly we realized that wouldn't happen before we had anything to show people. It wasn't going anywhere. So we made a decision that we would work and fund the build of the product.
Okay.
So that's how we did it.
Let me stop you there, because I'm intrigued to know what did you do before you realized quite quickly that you weren't going to be able to get other people to fund you at that really early stage?
It was literally talking to people, applying, calling investors, calling angel networks, making application forms online, and the response was always the same. This is too early. We need to see a product.
Yeah.
But it was literally hitting us in the face. no one would talk to us. Okay.
I think that's a really, really good point. And it's very, very rare that anybody gets professional investment at that very, very early stage. So actually you learn the hard way by going out and trying to do it and finding that out. But that's, again, something people can take away, is that there's actually no point.
Yeah. And again, that's right. We wasted a bit of time, at least I would say maybe even a few months, sort of kind of trying, coming and going, researching. And at the end, we had to realize that actually, no, this is not going to go anywhere. And
so you carried on working then to fund it.
So what we did was, Randa was always working full time. So she had her part, coming from her job. And I was consulting on a more ad hoc basis. So doing smaller projects. So I had more time to put into the business, whilst she had more, she had a contract that was more consistent than mine. So that's how we did it. It was working. I still did my part-time projects, but I put more time into growing VeeLoop, and we sort of merged the money and the time into a balance that worked for us. So we bootstrapped for the first, oh gosh, I don't know, I'm terrible with time, but first 18 months.
It probably felt like a long time at the time.
It felt like a long time, because even the time I was giving to VeeLoop, I had to fund it myself, because I wasn't earning and I had nursery to pay for, and all the bills, of course, because you still live. So that's how we did it. We bootstrapped by working and balancing our time.
Brilliant. Tough at the beginning. And so how far did you manage to get then at that kind of in that bootstrapping phase? Did you get yourself a product to show people?
So we built the first system, the minimum viable product, fully functioning, and we integrated with 3 retailers. So we had 3 initial clients as well. So that was, we thought, this is what we need to be able to then raise funds. We need to have the product, and let's give it that extra step of having some customers as well to put us in a position.
So you had a working product and you had some early customers as well. Brilliant. And so to customers, just so I understand how it works, who pays you? Is it the customer? Is it the retailer?
It's the retailer. So the way we work is we integrate to the retailer checkout. So it's like a PayPal button on the retailer checkout. So the retailer pays us when a transaction is done. And it's completely free for the families, for the kids and parents, because that's something we wanted to do, because we're parents and we know how expensive it is, and we just want to be an enabler of that transaction happening, but it's the retailer that is our customer.
So focusing on, I guess, those retailers that are appropriate for children to be buying from. Fantastic. So you've got a product, you've got some customers, and did you have parents and children using the product as well at that point?
Yeah, we did a small amount, but we did have.
Okay, fantastic.
100.
Okay, good. So some early signs of traction.
Yeah.
So at that point, you then decided to go out and get some funding. So tell us all about that. This second kind of go at going out and getting funding.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what we decided at that point, we quit our jobs completely, all the jobs. I finished all my contracts. Randa finished her contract, and we thought, okay, we're going to give this a proper go now that we have the product ready. But we still needed some money, because we thought, okay, we prepared ourselves to be able to live for like 6 months without salary. And then we thought, but we still need, you still need to pay, you have hosting, you have all your tech that you need to support your day-to-day work. We still need to pay developers to keep the product moving. So we thought, okay, let's see who on our family and friends has some spare cash. And we're both immigrants, so we did not grow up in this country. So our family network is not here. And to an extent, our university friends network is also not here. So it was kind of, and we're not rich. we can't just knock on our parents' door and say, can I have 20,000 or. But we talked to a few people when we managed to get one of our friends and one family to put in 5K each. So we had 10K to run the business. So we're not being paid, but we could pay developers, we could pay our tech and things that we needed to keep the business running. So that was the first one. And we also thought that was important because for investor, that gives them a little bit more confidence. If your family and friends feel like they can put their money in, it gives them that little bit more confidence. So even if it's not much, I mean, for the people that invested, that is money for them. It's not, it still gives that confidence. So that's what we did.
And how did you feel going to your friends and family with that opportunity? Did it feel comfortable? Was it all right?
No, not comfortable at all. Very, very nervous. Very. It was strange, but the people who did put in, they were very. They were very confident. They wanted to, and they were happy to do it. So they both knew us very well. One is from Randa's side, one is from my side. They're people that know us as people very well. So they were confident that, we would, in a way, make a success of it, or at least that we would give everything to make that work.
Yeah. So they know you, they trust you. That's the most important thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And did you, to get their money on board, even though it was a small amount, what did you have to do? Did you have a pitch deck that you took them through, or financials you took them through, all of that stuff?
Yeah, we had a pitch deck. One of them helped us practice for pitches, so he sat through our pitches. He knew very well what he was getting himself into. He was one of our feedback people. So yes, we did a deck for them especially, and
Good.
gave them some financials. And then what we did once they agreed was we drew up a contract. So we had a shareholders agreement with them, even though I did it myself. But it was we wanted to make it formal, so they had a signed contract, and then we issued their shares. Everything is, as if it was any other investor.
I mean, they're coming on super, super early, which is incredible. And if they're there with you for the journey, they should absolutely get the returns that they deserve for backing you really early. So definitely. Good that you got it all sorted. So I can't imagine that the £10,000 got you that far. So it can't have been too long before you were then going out to speak to kind of other types of investors. So what was your thinking at that time?
Well, we had given ourselves 6 months to raise funds. So we literally poured ourselves into fundraising. So it was getting a list of investors to go after. That was the first sort of task that we had. So we came up with that list, and we literally just started going after those people. And again, that comes with the network situation. We never worked in startups or in that kind of industry. We literally knew nobody. So it was as basic as making the list and calling people or emailing people and saying, how do we send a pitch? Do we send you an email pitch? And then we got into an accelerator as well. That was interesting. It helped us start building that network and meeting people and knowing people.
What was the accelerator that you were part of?
It's called the Accelerator Academy.
Okay.
And also when I started working with Randa, before I was a business partner, I started going to every event that I could in terms of fundraising and just even building tech products and marketing. I was going to these things for myself to start learning how those things work. And then that's how we started building our network, literally from nothing to then talking to people and getting to know people. So by that time, we had a bit of a list of investors that we wanted to approach, from people that we met and people that we knew about. And we went out with our pitch deck.
Did you get a good response to your outreach with investors?
We did. It was definitely better than the first time, because people now wanted to talk to us. They wanted to hear what we were doing. That was the main difference. It's like, oh, okay, you've built it, you've got 3 customers, you've got some traction. Okay, let's have a conversation.
Okay.
So it was definitely different, for sure, than the first time. It was, we started having conversations with investors, getting responses, and, you know, it felt really good. And we were lucky, and that's a funny story, that we got lucky, and then one person said, yes, I like it, I want to fund you. This was 3 months after we started.
Okay, so 3 months in. That must have felt, I mean, I remember that feeling when I had my first investor who said, we're in. I mean, it's really hard to describe that feeling. Yeah. It's that kind of, yes, like somebody else gets this. They believe in me.
But wow. Okay, they went, yes, we're funded. Let's do due diligence. And we're like, yes, got all due diligence, you know. And as women, and I worked in the public sector a lot, so I record everything. I've got that mindset organized, you know. And we had a lot of the due diligence already half there. It didn't take long. Everything in the file, we sent it, and discussions here, discussions there, agreed valuation, agreed the amount, and then it was about 6 weeks in, and they came back to us and said, I'm really sorry, we talked to our investment board and they don't want to invest. And that was absolutely crushing. I remember to the day very clearly the walk that we took after that phone call. Me and Randa went for a walk in the park, and I remember that feeling of that walk, just like, okay, this is it. So 3 weeks in, that was another 6 weeks. We were nearly 5 months into our 6-month time frame that we gave ourselves to do this. And the reason they gave was I find it a very strange reason, but basically they said they think the big boys like PayPal and Google will come and do this very quickly and they will crush you. And we've heard that a few times actually. And we think, okay, if everyone thinks that way, no one is going to do anything, because Google, Facebook, PayPal, I don't know who else, they can do anything, can't they? They've got all the developers in the world. They've got all the money in the world. They can do anything. So what is the point of starting things? And so that was awful. And I really felt like that was it for us.
I bet. And you'd really put all your hopes on this particular investor?
So that's one thing that I learned from that experience. Always have a plan B.
Yes.
Always have a
plan B. Yes, I've learned that lesson the hard way as well. Because you never have the money until it's actually in the bank. That's the thing.
Yeah. That is so true. Until it's in the bank, they can pull out, and that was a hard lesson to learn. So we pulled ourselves together. It took a few days. We had 2 or 3 days of really feeling like, this is, what are we doing? Are we doing the right thing? And then we pulled ourselves together and thought, yes, we are. Let's give another push. Can we push another, extend our time from 6 months to 8 months, 9 months? So, we had the family talks, and yes, we can. So we went back and started again, talking to all the people that wanted to talk to us. We started seeing an interesting traction as well with angel groups, because initially the angel groups didn't want to talk to us, but now we came back with the product, they started inviting us to pitch, which was really, really great, because we wanted to get into angel groups to try to bring more people in terms of expertise as well, bringing different people to help us grow the business. And then we did an application to one early stage fund. Actually, well, many, but then two of them, we went for the first meeting and then we went for the second meeting with both of them. They started asking, one of them was very financial focused. He started asking me for all these breakdowns, and I do all the projections. Breakdown of this, and what if this happens, and how much, very detailed financials that at the time I didn't know. They were I don't even know how to explain it, but they are the most realistic fantasy. You try to make fantasy realistic with all the evidence that you have to show that you can get there where you are wanting to get, because there's all this evidence that the circumstances will allow you to get there. And then the other one was very much about us. So we felt the different approaches from the two funds. They were very different, that what they focused on. One is a lot more about us. And I may say this now, I was 6 months pregnant at that time. So.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
And how did that go down?
I used to turn up and feel very awkward. But we always addressed it. We addressed it very quickly.
Well, you can't really hide it when you're 6 months pregnant, right?
No.
There's no disguising that.
And we were like, okay, we know there's an elephant in the room. Let's talk about the baby. We've got a plan. Patricia's going to do this, and she's going to take 2 months. Well, I think at the time we were saying 3 months off and then come back part-time. And that way we felt very easy after that conversation, addressing the issue. And I didn't feel both of those funds, which were the people that we moved on, all the others kind of left behind. I don't think they were bothered about that. One of them didn't want me to present on my own. There was a circumstance that I may have to present to their board of investors on my own. And he said, actually, I would rather have both of you.
Okay.
And I felt that was the reason, because they will only see the pregnant one, and the pregnant one might be away. So they need to see the other one to make sure that they both they can deliver, at least one of them. They didn't say that, but I felt that was the case, which I did. I thought it's fair enough. They just wanted to see the two people that will be there.
Yeah, and also they want to see how you two operate together, because your relationship as co-founders so important. Yeah, so important for them to see that. So yeah. So
that was it. The other fund was a lot more about us, and we sat with them for 4 hours. We had a 4-hour meeting with them. We talked about every single corner of the business, every angle, every question. And it was interesting, because in that meeting, they really started asking questions about what could be in the future, and they started having these ideas to help us. So it was really much more about who we were and what the business could be. And that was a really, really interesting. And then we ended up with 2 offers from both, very similar offers, very, very similar.
And both offers for the full amount that you were looking for?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what did you do? I mean, what a great position to be in.
Yeah.
So 2 offers, quite similar.
Yeah.
To tell us what you did.
So we had a gut feeling that the people who were the more interested in us as people would be the best fit for the business. For a couple of reasons. One, because we really had a good rapport with them. We liked them as people, and also one of them has a retail background. So that would be very helpful, whereas the other fund didn't have that, or didn't have anything concrete to show us. And we just felt they got the business and they got us. And in the end, their offer was slightly less beneficial to us, but that was compensated by the fact that we thought they would add a lot more value to the business. And we did negotiate a lot as well. We were very in the beginning, we were very fearful of negotiating on the valuation. And then we spoke to some friends and bankers, and they were like, well, look, I'll tell you what, if it was the other way around, they would be squeezing you to the last drop. Do not feel like that. Just push it and get as much as you can. You know, it's your business. You put your life, your last year of funding this business and, you know, doing all the compromises you have to do. Just squeeze it. They will tell you when you can't go any further.
Yeah. Good for you. I'm so pleased that you did that.
And
because as women, we shouldn't undervalue ourselves, and it's very easy to think, oh, I've got to take this deal because otherwise, you know, but you proved otherwise. Yeah. And
I mean,
and what you
we
said
knew we had to take more time.
Yeah.
And we thought, but we have to get the best deal for ourselves, because after that we're going to be kicking ourselves if we take something that we find out later we could have a better deal for not just for us, but for the business that we're building and we want to grow. So we pushed it hard, and we were always, and I have to say, I was always very nervous of, oh my God, are we sure we want to do that? What if they just walk away? But we did it in a very nice way when we explained, and every time we had an explanation that made sense. And in the end, we got to an agreement that we were happy with and they were happy with. But it was better than initially. So that's another thing I learned. Even if, I mean, I was so scared, but you have to get over the fear and just do it because no one else is going to do it for you.
Exactly. Nobody else is.
Yeah.
And there's so many, I mean, when you're looking at that deal, I mean, you've already talked about the fact that it's not always what on paper looks like the best deal. There's lots of other factors that come into it about rapport with investors, about that gut feel you get, which is actually based on all your years of experience. It's not magic, it's intuition. But and when you're negotiating your deal, valuation, but there are other things in your deal beyond valuation, aren't there? I mean, what can you remember other things that you were discussing in the deal that you wanted to negotiate on? For example, board seats or any of the kind of terms of the deal.
The board seat was one of the sort of non-negotiables. They would have a board seat. Mm-hmm. But what we were happy with was that the person who was going to take that seat was the one we wanted. So that was a very easy one because he adds value. And that was the other thing. We knew he was going to add value. And that was on the balance between the two deals. As I said, that was a very important one because on the other one, they didn't want a board seat actually. Mm. So in a way, the board seat was a comfort because we knew we were going to have someone there that would be sitting in that meeting, talking to us and discussing the things and giving us feedback, which is very important as an early business, I think, having that sounding board. So we thought, oh, actually, that's good. Let him have the seat. So we did negotiate on that one. We were quite happy with that. There were some things, and again, I'll have to be honest here. We were negotiating the contract the 2 days after my baby was born. So
oh my God.
I don't remember quite.
You're mad.
A lot of it, it's all a bit of a blur in my head. But
yes, I can imagine.
There were things, I think the main thing that I do remember was, do we take a deal that gives us maybe 1% more, holding on to more, an extra 1%, or do we give away this 1% for a person that we are pretty sure will add value? So it was that kind of, what else do they bring apart from the money? And that was the main consideration for us. Yeah. And after we had been through what we had been with that previous investor, we really wanted someone that we could have a relationship with, that could come in and talk to us and challenge us and even say things like, well, maybe you're not doing this very well, do this, which he has done. He has come and said, guys, you need to pull yourselves on this particular area, push a bit harder and go and do what you have to do, because there will be hard conversations. There will always be hard conversations. Things will not always go well. And again, we've had that situation where he has come and said things that we didn't like.
Yeah.
The relationship in that situation, the relationship you've built is very important, I think, because then you're able to take that feedback and make it positive, and then go and work and do what is the right thing for the business. So those considerations we had early on.
Yeah. What was more painful, the childbirth or the getting your round done?
Oh God, that was close.
But both of those things, it's like years later, you don't really remember the pain because you block it out.
Yeah.
And like with childbirth, we often go on to have more children because we forget about the pain. Exactly. And you went on to raise more money, didn't you?
Yeah.
So was that from your existing investor, or did you bring in some new investors?
No. So then we had to go out again because our runway, and that's another learning. From, I think one of your questions was what you do differently. I would maybe have raised or keep raising and not stop raising, because we stopped for a bit to give a push on the business. I think if I did that again, I would not have stopped raising. I would have kept going, because then we had to stop the business. Well, stop in a way, but we had to focus on fundraising again because our runway wasn't very long.
I mean, it's an interesting choice, isn't it, that entrepreneurs have to make. Do I raise more and then cut that round off and spend 12, 18 months focusing on the business? And then go back into fundraising, or do I do more of a continual fundraise? And I think more and more people are doing continual fundraisers now. They're raising smaller amounts more often, or doing rolling closes. So because raising investment is such a integral part of the job of being a high growth entrepreneur, that actually if you can make it just one of the things that you're constantly doing, it possibly can feel a bit less painful. I don't know, rather than the kind of full on, off, on, off approach.
Exactly. And we didn't know that. After, on the second time when we started again, someone said to us, don't do a round, just raise as you go. And I was like, is that a thing? If I knew that on the first time, I would just kept going, because we had some leads that were not here or there. Maybe we could have pushed them a bit more.
Doesn't suit everybody to be doing that, but can work for some.
So that's one learning. I wish we had sort of kept going, but then we started again, and the second part wasn't from our current investor. We started looking, we wanted to bring someone else in, and we wanted to bring a strategic investor that had a hand on the family sort of market, the family technology area. And that's what we were looking for. We wanted that money to come from someone that could bring us the family side, because it's very expensive to do consumer marketing. And with the amount we had, we could just scratch the surface. So we wanted someone to bring that as an investor, bring the money and bring us the opportunity to reach that market quickly and less costly. So we went out, and again, the whole network thing, I remember thinking about when I started, I don't know anybody that has money to give it to. I mean, we started again, we reached out again to VCs, angel networks, and we got really, this second time around, we got really good traction with angel networks. We pitched some really great networks, and we got angels interested. So we had at that time we had a few angels with smaller amounts, but they were adding up. Some really good people, great people that we liked and we wanted to work with. And then we hit a strategic investor. or potential, actually, potential. They're not an investor yet. And again, that's a very funny story. It's all about that gut instinct. There was a day I was at this workshop, someone invited me, and I didn't sleep, for, I don't know, I didn't have any sleep for months. I was feeling really awful that day. I was lying in the couch in the office. There's a couch. I'm lying there half asleep. And Randa's like, why don't you go home? And I'm like, no, I have to go to this workshop. Why? I'm like, I just have to go. There was something in my head just saying, you have to go to this thing. And I could hardly walk. I was that tired that day. And I turned up in this workshop, didn't say anything, just sat there. And at the end, I talked to one person who introduced us to another person, who introduced us to another person, who turns out can be a strategic investor.
Wow.
So I don't know what to say to that, but I just pushed myself that day, and I turned up there, and it was an opportunity. And that's what sometimes I think, if you don't have a network, because I think for female founders, it's a very big thing. You don't have, if coming from another country, you don't have that network. You don't have people that can just hand you money. They, can support you. And those opportunities, these workshops and the people you talk to, they are very great opportunities. And even if they don't turn up at something concrete straight away, it's a ripple effect. It will slowly build up as people get to know you. So we went and met this person. The team was very friendly. We had a really great chat. They get our product 100%. There wasn't, it was easy. The conversation was easy. It just flowed. And they said, look, I can't invest now for reasons they had, but I will introduce you to some people. And they introduced us, and then we got one investor who invested what we needed from that. And it was, and I was like,
yeah,
oh, okay. I was a bit shocked at the time, like, oh, you're going to invest this. Okay. Great.
That's amazing.
Let's do it. So at the face of it, it looks like it was easy, but it wasn't easy because it took so many talking to so many people.
When you find that right person, it is easy, isn't it? Because the fit is obvious, but it's all the work that you do to get to that point. And this point you make about networking goes throughout your life as an entrepreneur, and that it's not something you should do just because you're fundraising.
Yeah.
Is always, your network will bring you back so much. And then when you are ready to fundraise, you use that network. I mean, it's like 6 degrees of separation, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Kevin Bacon theory. Because there's always someone who can lead you to someone, and before you know it, you found the prince after kissing all those frogs.
Yeah, we did.
Amazing.
And I, thinking back, when I started, I always felt really strange. It's like, it looks like everyone else just gets, I know somebody, and they gave. I had so many people, so many men, funny enough, middle-aged white men saying, oh, you raised 50 grand like that, just put on a PowerPoint. And they really don't realize that there are some people in the world that do not know a person that can hand you 50 grand.
Yeah.
We don't know anyone that can hand us 50 grand.
I mean, talk about white male privilege.
Yeah.
And this is the problem, though. I think, I don't know if you agree, but most of the people in the industry who do have that kind of white male privilege have no understanding of what it's like to come from a place like you've come from and get there. It's because you just don't. It's all stacked against you. You have to work much harder to get there. You can get there.
Yes,
you've got to work. You've got to work around all those challenges. It's not easy, is it?
And I used to get really angry and say to Randa, how dare he say that? How dare he? And at the end, I thought, actually, they don't understand, because that's their world. They would turn around and say to a friend of their dad, can I invest 50 grand on me? And they will do it, because that's what their life is like. And they have no concept of that is not like that for everybody.
So how do you think we can make the world better for female founders and people from underrepresented backgrounds, to go out and get that investment?
I think the main thing, and which is the most challenge, is that mindset shift. Is for the people who have the means and the resources to be open-minded and understand that actually it's not that we didn't want to get our family and friends to help us and give us 2 years of, paying all our bills, paying our childcare, and let us build this thing so that you can invest when it's risk-free. We didn't have that. And it's not because we didn't want to, it's because literally we don't have that net, that safety net behind us to be able to put that much time into it without anything back. So that mindset shift is the main thing. And I know it's complex and it will take time, but I believe if we talk about it, then those people will start to understand. And some of the times I didn't say anything because I just felt really awkward. And I think at the last one, we kind of laughed it off, but said, "Oh yeah, I wish I had somebody," So in a way, I don't know the right answer to this, but how can we start making them see that it's not everyone has the same life story and the same life opportunities that they had. And the other thing is the whole warm introduction situation. Again, how do you change that for people to start being able to reach the decision makers? And one of the things I found really interesting is this investor that we got our funds from, they do a competition. So you apply and the two partners, they review everyone's application. So they are the decision makers, they review the applications. It's not someone who, doesn't have life experience, because we've had some very young people reviewing our deck, not even reading it. One of them came back and said, "Oh, thank you very much. It looks great. Come back to us when your product is working." We're like, slide number 9 gives you feedback from our customers, retailers, feedback from the people using the service. How? Did you not
stock
read
answer.
They did not read the deck.
Yeah.
So those two partners, they review it and they go through they talk to everybody. So it's an open competition. It's very interesting that they don't intend to have more women founders, but they do have a good numbers, above average number of women.
Yeah, I think that's right. So they will win in the long run because they are seeing the opportunities, great businesses like yours that other investors will just miss. And I totally agree with you on the warm introductions thing. I think there was a stat in the Rose Review, which I was part of, putting together and supporting, that I think you're 12 times more likely to receive investment if you were introduced to the investor. And it's so stacked against people who don't have the network.
Yeah.
And that's a systemic problem, I think, that really needs to be broken. Yeah. But investors need to put in place new systems that do just allow their pipeline to apply in a much more neutral way, and to be able to review that pipeline in a neutral way so that they strip out the bias. It's easy to do, but people aren't doing it. It drives me nuts.
Exactly. It's not hard to do. I think recently there was another one. I think it's called Ada Ventures.
Yes.
They have that as
run
well.
Run by Czech Warner. She's fabulous.
Exactly. They have an open application. Yes. And they respond as well. So
they absolutely get the diversity piece. They're doing a brilliant job.
So that's amazing. I think that's the way it will start going. And the more those people come up and the more different groups and funds and angel networks and all that, the more it will change. But the other thing, they say, "Oh, we don't know you. You don't know where you come from. We are very different people." I thought that 4-hour meeting we had with those guys as well was a very interesting, because no one else has given us a 4-hour meeting. You get to know people, you get a feeling for them as a person. You have jokes, you talk about family. So I think that gives you a lot more of an insight into the people sitting there if you give them the time to talk.
If you give them the time.
If you don't know them, okay, let's say it's not a warm introduction. I don't know this person. I don't know if I trust them. Well, give them the time and try to find out a bit more about them.
Yeah.
I don't know how realistic that is, but that's a way to get around it. It's not like there's no way around it. There is.
There is. It's just time and investment in the process.
And time and wanting to do it.
Thank you. Really, some great insights there, Patricia. Thank you. So, what's next for VeeLoop? You've been doing a new initiative during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So tell us about that and tell us what's coming up for you guys.
Okay. So once the lockdown started, we're sitting at home thinking, oh my God, retailers went a bit panicky, as everyone did. So it wasn't a good time for us to be selling VeeLoop to retailers. And then we started helping around our streets and doing shopping for people. And really quickly, we realized that it was very awkward to exchange money with your neighbors when you do shopping for them. Because there's the whole virus contamination, and then, I don't have change, I have to come back, and then you have to exchange money again. So we started thinking, and we realized, actually, we've got all the ingredients to get something going for this, because it's all about safe payment, safeguarding vulnerable people, and getting payment done. So now we have a network. We contacted our network and we said, we want to do this. Do you want to help? So we got a few people involved. We built this service in about 3-4 weeks and we got it running. So we have this iZettle card readers, and the volunteers can take payment on the doorstep. The payment comes to our system. We process it. We get the receipt going. We check the receipts and then we pay the volunteer. So it's all into a walled garden where we can safeguard that person and make sure all the receipts are coming in. And also there's an audit trail. So for the organizations managing those volunteers, or even the mutual aid groups, which are run by volunteers, they can have an audit trail as well, which is something they didn't have. So we got that going, and then we applied for Innovate UK grant, and we got a grant to develop the app that will have all the automated processes built into it.
That's incredible. What an incredible pivot. I absolutely love that. I mean, and so are they sort of two separate kind of businesses that you will now take forward? There's the two services within the VeeLoop umbrella, but they are very separate and very different services. So now we're building both, and it's really exciting to get the grant because, again, it gives us a bit of breather to then be able to develop this service in a way that we wouldn't have been able to without it. Fantastic.
So it's been exciting. We have worked a lot during lockdown because we wanted to get this going, but it's been good. It's been very, very interesting.
Excellent. So two great services that I'm sure will be a great success in the future.
Yeah.
And I wish you all the best with those.
We're just assessing now what the next step will be in terms of fundraising. We're talking about fundraising. We just come to the point now that we are going to look further and see what we need, what our priorities will be, and how we're going to take this forward in terms of fundraising. So we haven't got that set up in stone yet.
But some planning for 2021 maybe.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey on and how you raised the money. So many fantastic insights that have come out of that, and we'll make sure that we hammer home some of those points to the listeners when we publish the show.
And it's, as you said, I think you said the right thing. It is very hard. We were going to face more hurdles than other people, but it can definitely be done. Is persistence and confidence in yourself, which is something I've learned a lot. I have a bad case of imposter syndrome, as many women do. And it's just, putting that to a side and going after it, because it does happen, definitely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Patricia. Best of luck.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for following Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. This content is all provided to you for free, so if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe so you never miss another one. Enter the Arena has helped hundreds of female founders fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business. Our first-hand experience Expert guidance and proven programs help female founders unleash the Wonder Woman inside. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.enterthearena.co.uk. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, and I look forward to talking with you soon.